welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Mr. James Sandberg from Metranomic.com, or Metranomic. We'll find out in a moment the proper pronunciation. We'll leave you in suspense about that. But either way, James has helped startups, scale-ups, and global market leaders drive their demand generation programs. He's won awards, and he runs this specialist B2B marketing consultancy that helps clients just like you engage, convert, and retain target accounts with intent-driven, account-based marketing and demand generation programs. So we're going to find out what all that means, how it can benefit you. So James, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, good to meet you, Rob. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. And who says LinkedIn never pays off, right? We were messaging on LinkedIn and you said, hey, I like your podcast. Can I be on it? And it's amazing how many things we can get in life if only we ask. So we'll find out about you. And so right off the bat, is it Metranomic or Metronomic?
Metranomic. There's a story behind it, actually. We have a dog. Me and my partner, we have a dog, and it's a Papillon dog. And they normally have really big tails. And when Rudy gets excited, his tail looks like a metronome. It kind of just goes like that. So I thought that was a nice kind of name. So I decided Metranomic. Why not?
Right. And you hear about that a lot, right? There'll be some software company and they're like, oh, what do we name it? We'll just name it after the street you grew up on, right? What's a Google? What's a Yahoo, right? You name it after something that's memorable for you and you create your own meaning. And so as far as the symbolism of that, like the metronome, why do we want a metronome? Is that so that way we have like consistent leads and traffic, or why is a metronome a good thing to have?
Yeah, I mean, people talk about their GTM motions. They talk about consistency in brand strategy. They talk about having kind of well-defined messages and marketing automation. I mean, it's all about data and automation these days, right? And AI. I mean, it's kind of marketing is kind of rhythmical, and you test, you learn, you optimize, you make it stronger, better, faster. There's emotion to these things. So just kind of felt like the right kind of thing to call it.
Well, wonderful. And I'm always looking to tap into sort of this mindset that you're talking about, where you hear about the entrepreneurial ADD, right? There's always something better to be done and there's always something new. And I'm always looking into like, okay, like if I'm setting up traffic or doing a campaign or making the content or the landing pages, I'm like, okay, how do I create something that lasts, something that is cyclical instead of linear? That way I can improve the system, improve the follow-up sequence, improve the marketing messaging. And so do you see people struggling with this idea, or have you struggled with just the consistency aspect and kind of tempering the new bright shiny objects too?
Yeah, so my guilty sin is lifetime tech deals. So when money was cheap and the going was good, there were tons of kind of quite well-funded SaaS tech solutions out there that were just throwing open the doors and saying, just give me $50 and you can have a lifetime deal. So I splurged. And yeah, so I got distracted for a very long time by the bright, shiny thing. I didn't need all of them. And actually now I'm trying to kind of focus much more on creating the standard operating procedures, narrow focus, really gain those deep learnings on how you can make things better and stronger, because digital distractions, they can take us all in lots of directions. Not all of them are productive, So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it does, because it's good to have that awareness, right? You do the AppSumo deals and you buy things. You say, well, I know I don't need this now, but you never know. But then you end up in this weird habit of like you almost have a shopping addiction. And so you're saying that we need to be strengthening our SOPs and improving. And so what are you working to improve right now?
At the moment, I'm working on some of the outbound work that I've been doing for myself. Actually, I've got obviously there's client work going on in the background. But the stuff I'm doing in the business is focused on, how can I look at, because outbound marketing, outbound emailing anyway, cold emailing has become harder to do. So hitting the inbox, and getting the replies, because it's become a really crowded space. So my focus has been, how can I turn cold emailing into a value delivery channel? So actually, we obviously don't want to burn the data and burn the relationship before it's even started, right? So emailing people, how do you normally cultivate a relationship with someone in the real world? Well, if you go and meet them at a networking party, you ask some questions, you learn about them, you give them some kind of interesting points that might be helpful for them. So I'm looking at how you can use email really as a nurture channel. So sending out value pieces of content that are ungated, trying to spark conversations and relationships just by being altruistic, by putting the value out there. It's actually something that I've done for a number of years, and it's been the primary way that I've driven revenue for the business. But I'm really now trying to look at how I can, because what I realized is actually I have an asset, the account-based marketing playbook, and I review it periodically. And it actually just became too big. It became over 100 slides long and like dense, and I get some replies saying this is the most extensive piece of material I've ever seen. And I realized, actually, if I send somebody an email with that, they're not going to read all of it. So, I'm looking at kind of chopping it up into a sequence and doing a chapter here and a chapter there. Sustaining gives me more opportunity to kind of deliver value, but to kind of land a couple of extra messages as well. So yeah, I'm kind of focused on how I can create more hyper personalization in those outbound sequences, doing persona based segmentation as well. So I look at it in terms of buckets. In my world, I've got marketeers, I've got leaders, and then I've got operation leaders. So account-based marketing helps to drive operational efficiency because it aligns sales and marketing and operations. It helps marketing teams close bigger deals faster or improve the quality of leads and the MQL to SQL conversion rates. And leaders love it because it helps them create a more joined up, integrated operation. So I look at those three buckets, and there are different messages for each one of those different personas. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, that's a project that I've got going on at the moment. But other than that, consistency on LinkedIn, yeah, I do struggle with that.
We all do. And it's great to hear about your thought process here because, I mean, cold email, it's kind of a weird beast, right? Because like maybe even up to like 5-10 years ago, I ignored it. I was like, all I have to do is I'll make my opt-in and make my freebie. I'll post on some message boards, get some backlinks. But then when social media took over, it became really difficult to get those email opt-ins. And I realized like, okay, well, I have to be more aggressive. I have to focus on what it is that I can control. And then even like the last 5 years, LinkedIn's been amazing, right? LinkedIn has kind of turned into its whole social network. It used to be just a place to post your resume, but it seems like there's a lot to navigate there, right? As far as the pushy factor and also the like finding your right person and getting it dialed in, right? Because it seems like there's kind of these two extremes at play. Because like I'm sure you've gotten these messages where you just get a bunch of stuff and it's really aggressive, and I'm like, no matter what you're selling, I don't want it. And then I've also gotten where maybe they weren't pushy enough, and they're like, hey, how are you? We're in the same business. Let's network. And I'm just like, I know you have something. Just tell me what it is. And so when you're like figuring out these buckets, or you're figuring out your messaging and copywriting and stuff like that, like, do you struggle with that? Do you ever like think about like, okay, how do I position the right sizeness of this so that way I can get to the point, but not too fast or too slow?
Yes, I try to hang everything on value. So when I'm and this is not necessarily about cold email, right? This is about kind of, if you're running account-based marketing, also you've got your buying committee. You might have 3 different types of people who you're trying to engage. You want to engage with them in a way that's meaningful to them. And so the psychology for me is I've got to get under their skin in a way which is remarkable, as in I know not just kind of the pain that they have in their role, but the kind of operational dynamics at play between the other people that they're working with. some of the internal intra-departmental challenges that may have, some of their personal aspirations. What are they, what are they seeking to achieve professionally speaking? I've got an agency background, and one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given is, when you're trying to sell to a client, you're selling to two things. You're selling to the organization and the person. So always remember the human being. And, that's really powerful. It's really important in B2B as well, because a lot of the time, take it back maybe 10 years ago, B2B was very boring. I think people have got it now. It's about people, even if it is a decision maker behind a brand, they're still a human being. So, understanding how you can empathize with that human being, how you can build resonance with them is really important. So it's not so much about I see some of the emails I get that annoy me are the ones that are just sort of very friendly and cheesy, because someone's obviously tried to work on this thing of not having someone reported as spam, but there's no message or substance in there. So for me, when I'm delivering something, I'm saying, look, you've got this problem. And even within the email, I'll try and say, here is how you can solve this problem in 3 steps, for example. And if you want more information, here's an ungated asset you can look at, with a good hook at the end. So that kind of has worked for me for a number of years. It is more difficult now. Of course, email is a big part of account-based marketing, but Google, Yahoo, they changed their policies around email deliverability, but I'm still seeing good opens. I'm still seeing good clicks. You've just got to get into your buyer's head. Really got to get in there, because if your messaging is not resonant, you're going to get spam flagged. If you get spam flagged, then the whole campaign will fall over. But yeah, anyway.
And that's very helpful. That's a lot to think about, and it's put things in perspective for me. Like, because I'm always, whenever get the cold LinkedIn's or the cold emails, I'm like, okay, why do I like this and why don't I like this? And so I'm going to be looking at this with fresh eyes and say, okay, is this empathizing with me? Is it speaking to my problem? Am I saying, hey, this is the first guy that gets it, or maybe even he gets it better than I do? Like, even he puts it in a terms where, like, whoa, I had this problem, but the way that he set it up for me, I'm like, this is exactly my problem. And you say, I know you have this problem. Here's 3 steps to solve it. Here's this ungated asset to work on it. And you mentioned a few times this term account-based marketing, and I've heard this thrown around by one other agency owner that I know, and I felt like I knew what it meant, but just in your own words, can you tell us what this account-based marketing concept is?
Sure. So if you can imagine the concept of segmenting, marketing segmentation, right? So you will have, let's say, I worked for a client of mine a number of years ago, was Caterpillar rugged phones, right? And we discovered we have 2 segments. We've got adventure sports enthusiasts, and we've got people who work in construction. Completely different segments, right? Now, take that one level further and think, well, actually, this is only construction, and now it's about construction, individual construction firms. Each one of those firms is an account, okay? So within each account, you've got different bits of noise that are coming out. So you've got CEO announcement, press releases, you've got services, capabilities, headcount growth, financial reports, you've got SEO stats, traffic metrics, and on and on and on. So if you know how, you can build a really deep profile around the organization and the people inside that organization. Now, let's say that you have got a product or a service which is very high value, plus $50,000, $100,000 a year. You're going to have a limited finite market, and your sales cycle is going to be quite long. And the number of people who are going to make a decision to sign off on that contract is not going to just be one person. There'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Okay. So account-based marketing is really applicable for large ticket sales, 100, 200, $500,000 plus in revenue terms. because there aren't going to be that many organizations that you're selling to. And so you need to what's called flip the funnel. In marketing, we talk about, in traditional digital marketing, we talk about a funnel. So it's really broad. We kind of talk to the whole universe, and then, okay, we do some targeting, yes, but we talk to a broad number of people, and then we get some of them to fill in a lead capture form, and then we try and drive those down the funnel because we got enough potential people we could sell to that we're okay doing broad-based marketing. Account-based marketing is the circumstance where actually you have a limited number of people that you could sell to, and you actually flip the funnel upside down. You start narrow, and you say, well, these are the exact, 100, 200, you can go higher, you can do a few thousand, exact target businesses that I want to sell to. And I'm going to start by building that qualified list. They need to have a certain headcount, be in a certain sector, provide a certain service, because I know that what I do is going to help them. And then you build that depth of knowledge about them. Who are the key decision makers, the named key individuals who are the decision makers? Now we can use stuff like LinkedIn to find out that information. We can profile them. We can find out work history, hobbies, interests. That's why it's flip the funnel, because you start narrow and you go deep. Okay, you go really deep into it. And you're using a lot of research to profile, and then you're using channels to direct engage with those key decision makers. Account-based marketing has got 3 different flavors. You've got what's called one-to-many. So an easy way of describing that is, let's say that we, for argument's sake, companies that have got 50 plus employees who are in the construction sector, for example, okay? That would be typically a one-to-many type account-based marketing program, because you might have a few thousand target accounts you're trying to sell to. So in that case, you'd be looking at LinkedIn, you'd be looking at email, you might do some desk drops, that kind of stuff. And it would be personalized, maybe a little bit of hyper personalization through some of your messages that you push out through channels. The next level up from one-to-many is one-to-few. And that's where you start to get much deeper into how you do the messaging. Some of the messaging, you might even go do it by hand. Some of it, you might invite people, for example, to meet you face to face. Right? But the expectation on one-to-many is that you're going to go for a smaller deal size and you're going to convert a larger number of them over a shorter period of time. Whereas one-to-few, the deal size becomes bigger. You still got maybe a few hundred target accounts you're going for, but the level of personalization and the sales experience and the marketing personalization that you deliver to them is just that much more detailed. You put more time and effort in because the deal size is worth more. And then you've got the ultimate account-based marketing, which is a hybrid of digital and physical activities, which is one-to-one. So one-to-one would be, this is the CEO of Coca-Cola, and I want to sell my $2 million thing to him or her, and I'm going to have to spend 18 months figuring out where do they go, what clubs are they in, how am I going to get in the right room with them, and doing all the other stuff like the LinkedIn and, trying to sort of get them digitally to engage. And it's the roundtable invitations, and, it's a really involved piece because the sales cycle for a 2 million plus deal is going to be 18 months to 24 months. And so, yeah, those are the 3 flavors of ABM. There are a whole raft of different tactics, but data and measurement and personalization play a really important factor in it, because you can measure account engagement levels, which is really critical. So let's say that you have, if you're running a one-to-many campaign, let's say you're engaging a few thousand target accounts, and you're engaging, let's say, 2 or 3 decision makers in each one of those few thousand accounts. After you've run, let's say, a bit of emailing, you can run a report and identify the target accounts that were the most engaged. So some of these target accounts opened more, clicked more, some of them replied more, and you can assign an account engagement score to them based on that engagement activity. And that is where you start then to say, well, okay, we can take this, that they're interested in the message, the content, the subject matter. So they're now probably worth elevating into a one to few type ABM campaign. But you can measure a lot more, obviously, than email opens or clicks. Have they come to a webinar? If you've got reverse IP lookup tech on your website, you can measure, have they come to my website? Have they come to this specific page on my website? So over time, if you're standing still and you're not going to change who you're trying to sell to, you can build a really rich portrait of the organization. What did the CEO just announce? What's the new product they're launching? So you get really close to the organization, and you're always kind of starting new conversations with the people you're connected to in the organization. Oh, I read the CEO made this announcement. What's the segue to your service? Conversation starter. So you can have those kinds of focus where it's very specific, relationship driven. Like I said, typically deal sizes are larger when you're in that kind of mode of operating in ABM. But I think honestly, it should really just be called good B2B marketing. Good targeting, that's really at the baseline. Marketing teams, in my view, should really be looking at who they engage more in the way that sales teams look. Have they got a qualified person that they're marketing to? Have they qualified the person they're engaging? Because if they haven't, there's a risk that they might be doing some wastage. Now, of course, brand marketeers would slap me in the face for saying that, because actually broad reach is good for market awareness and brand loyalty. I get that because I've done brand work in the past, but purely with an ABM hat on, qualifying who you're marketing to in an ABM context reduces wastage. And I'll give you a really good contrast. A good contrast point is Google PPC. So, I'm a marketeer. I'm a B2B marketeer. I've decided I'm going to run some PPC ads on Google, and I've got this keyword, which I think is a high intent keyword. So someone's searching, they've clicked, they've got to the landing page. Let's say I've got an ebook there. They've filled in the form. Fantastic. This is a lead that I've got, but it's not a lead, okay? Because it's the conversion rate between MQL, marketing qualified lead, and sales qualified lead. Okay, so marketing goes to sales and says, here's a lead. Sales looks at that lead. Do you want to know what percentage of those leads sales turns around and says, that's a lead that I can work with? Have a guess, Rob.
I mean, guess 12%.
Yeah, it's like 12, 13%. So the difference is with ABM, you're only engaging those people actually who you know to be relevant, right? Whereas someone filling in a landing page could be an intern, PA, aspiring entrepreneur, someone who's unemployed. It could be anyone, right? So that's the difference. It's kind of looking at trying to pre-qualify before you kind of do any activity, and then getting that depth of intel before you jump into to spending the budget. And it's become more popular and more prevalent, I think, because we're the kind of growth at any cost mindset, the cheap money era is over. So you can't just go splurge on kind of artificial growth metrics. It's got to be real. It's got to be sustainable.
We need to up our game. And what's also great about this is that now is a great time to do it, right? Because even a few years ago, maybe you check their website, who knows what's on Facebook, but like we said earlier, LinkedIn is huge, YouTube is huge. You can find a lot of this information quite quickly and easily to qualify these leads and to just figure out how to pursue them better and to do it over this long term and more thought through and less kind of spray and pray, but more strategic. And like you said, narrow it down to the exact decision makers,
Right.
Look at what the kind of company news is. And it's fun to think about because, I mean, a lot of successful marketers have done it on a smaller scale, right? Like sometimes I'll be like, hey, this lead in my CRM, I see they went to this landing page. I saw they clicked this email. I'm going to go over on social media and send them a message, and they'll think like, oh my gosh, what a coincidence. I went to Robert's landing page and he messaged me. This is a sign. It's like, no, because I was looking at my data and I recognized the name, and this is someone I've been chasing for 6 or 9 months, over 20 messages, and it's like that triggered me to do that. And so it's all, even if we're not in this exact space, it's good to just see what these good ideas, what these best practices are. But if we are in this space, if account-based marketing is great for us and for demand generation and all of that, then how can someone find out more about you? Like you come up here, you've delivered a lot of value, which is what you said is important, and you've gotten us thinking, but thinking and getting ideas is one thing. And then when it comes time to implement, sometimes we need someone like you to figure out the strategy, figure out the steps. And so how can someone do that? If someone says, man, this guy, James, he knows what he's talking about, I want to start this conversation, what is the service or solution you provide, and how can someone look into this?
That's a great question and an opening for a shameless plug. What I'd say is that typically clients fall into two different buckets. First of all, clients, the education curve on ABM is pretty high because it's quite complex. It's we're using AI a lot, we're using data, a lot of automation, a lot of systems, tech stacks, etc. And so when we have kind of SME type clients, we try to approach it like we will implement a small kind of kernel of ABM activities, which is just like a small piece which demonstrates the value that you can get. For example, if you're doing multi-channel engagement, where you're running something on LinkedIn and you're also running something through email, maybe you're doing some desk drops, for example, that would be quite a tight, small, what we call a kind of an initial pilot, where you're getting some results for a low cost, but you're also learning about the dynamics at play between these different channels. Often they're new channels that clients have not necessarily worked in before. And then over time, we layer on top of that, because there's always more intelligence. You can do real-time tracking dashboards of companies' announcements. You can build triggered-based emails based on target account behavior. There's more and more layers to this. So we try to start with, if a client's not doing anything, we try to do a really small piece of activity, get the results, and then layer on the next and the next and the next. For more mature businesses, we have we've delivered a number of what we call kind of marketing transformation programs. So this is for businesses that have already sort of got a sales marketing team in place. They maybe have hit a bit of a wall, and for example, cost per lead's going up, conversion rates, MQL to SQL is not great. They're struggling to kind of hit beyond a certain revenue amount. These are the types of clients who we talk to, and we work with them to implement account-based marketing within their existing marketing structures. So, what we find with that is essentially we work like an embedded member of the team for 3 to 5 months. We put the processes in, systems, integrations, messaging, content. We do the capability development piece, and we're part of the journey, and we're in the organization for that 4 or 5 month period. There are some interesting things about that which are perhaps less obvious, which are for that to succeed, we have there is change. There's change management in that. So, an organization has been operating marketing in a very specific way, and account-based marketing, for it to succeed, it doesn't need to take over everything, but it does need to have attention and focus, because it's just that little bit more complex and needs to have a bit of focus and attention on it. So what we often ask is that we have leadership sponsoring this, because if it's not sponsored by leadership and they're not driving the change through the team, it's very difficult to kind of get it to stick. Does that make sense?
It does. That people are tricky, right? And you can have this really great idea and this really great strategy, but if the people aren't on board, then you're dead in the water. It's like you have to apply account-based marketing to the organization you're helping, right? It doesn't just stop at the sale. You actually have to get these people on board with you. And so, and I can definitely see how this is tough to navigate, and why we need someone like you just to figure out all the nuances. And so your website is metranomic.com. And what is sort of a next step call to action? If someone says, hey, it all sounds great so far, especially the getting the people on board with the ideas and just making some of this change happen. How does someone reach out to you, Mr. James Sandberg, and get to the next level?
Well, we just get in touch on LinkedIn or the website. But we normally we need to establish, is ABM actually a right fit for a potential client, and what flavor of ABM would it look like? Would it be one-to-one, one-to-many, one-to-few? Is it going to be transformation? Is it going to be a discrete program? So we have a good couple of discussions just to see how can we tailor or adjust that to make it fit for the organization. And I'm sure, as most marketing strategists have, I've got a hard drive full of kind of decks and slides and stuff, so we can do some workshopping and figure out a good shape, and then if it's a good fit, go from there.
Wonderful. So there was a conversation to be had, right, to figure out if it is the right fit. And so we said, as far as those contact details, metranomic.com, that's metranomic.com. And even better, why not also add Mr. James Sandberg, that's Sandberg, James Sandberg on LinkedIn, so that way you can apply this, see if it's the right fit, see if it will work to grow you and your company. And it's been wonderful speaking with you about these really cool ideas, James. This is very exciting, and those companies that need it, they definitely should have it. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Rob.